Hey everybody, we're back with IndieSeen, and this may be the most IndieSeen episode we've ever done. We have a full panel of very talented filmmakers participating in NYC Indie Arthouse Summer Film Festival, which actually started back in mid-June with a special screening of Only in Theaters, directed by the one and only Raphael Sbarge, who's back with us, and continuing this coming weekend. That is the 12th of July through the 18th. At the Film Noir Cinema in Brooklyn. And we're going to be talking with all the filmmakers who have movies at this film festival, including Mark Barnard and Reid, Estreicher. Reid, this is the first time that you and Mike and myself have met. Not you and Mike, because you guys know each other. You made a movie together, but this is our kind of introduction. So pardon me if I'm stepping over names, but you have a fantastic film called Thank You 5. There's going to be a special version of that showing at the festival, which is very exciting. We'll talk about that. We've got Sujewa Ekanayake with Cosmic Disco Detective Rene, the Secret Society for Slow Romance 2, and also the not the brainchild, but you are the inventor, the brains behind NYC Indie Art House Festival. And we also have Rick Schmidt, who is joining us shortly. We're trying to work out some AV issues with him. He is the legendary indie filmmaker whose film CHETZEMOKAH'S Curse we talked about on the show, and we've talked about a couple of other films. So he's going to be joining us soon, and we're going to get into what this festival is all about, how it came to be, what movies are showing there, why you should come out and support the festival, and other things in the film landscape, including the state of independent cinema with regards to movie theaters, and also this weird kind of mainstream summer we seem to be having, where summer is dead, then summer's alive, then who knows what's going on. I don't know. I'm not an expert. But yeah, we're going to get into it. And I think to kick things off, Sujewa, tell us about Indie Art House Summer and how people can get involved, how they can show up, where they can show up, and what is it?
Awesome. Thanks a lot for having us on the show. Thanks to all the filmmakers for joining us. Hopefully Rick can join us soon. Yeah, we have the full spectrum of the film world except experimental films. So we have Raphael Sbarge, who's an actual movie star, who was in Risky Business, which is coming back to life and screening, I think this coming Saturday. And he's a Emmy award-winning doc director, and he's acted in and worked on hundreds of movies. And Mike and Reid have a great new movie showing black and white for the first time at our film festival. So the film festival starts on the 12th. It kind of started on the 15th of June. We did Raphael's movie, and we're going to keep promoting that throughout the festival. And that was a good turnout. I've done 3 screenings at that event, at that venue, Film Noir Cinema, and all have gone really well. Probably the best screenings I've done. Nice venue, nice town, Greenpoint, and a bunch of people show up. So, you can't ask for anything better. Facets in Chicago was also pretty good. Last time, Raphael, Ian, and myself in November, we were in Chicago for the Chicago version of Indie Discovery LA, which became NYC Indie Art House Summer Festival. Anyway, I could go on, but I'll stop here. So, Film Noir Cinema, Greenpoint, Brooklyn. IndieDiscoveryLA.com has all the info. Okay, Ian, any other questions?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the beginning of the show. So, well, I mean, okay. I guess, like, I want to talk about the individual films that are going to be showing there starting this weekend, or also Raphael with the film that you showed a couple weeks ago, which we've talked about a few times here on Kicking the Seat / IndieSeen. But tell me about this film. Well,
one thing I want to add. Sorry, the whole idea of doing screenings like these came from watching Raphael's movie in January of 2023 in Manhattan at IFC Center. So that's why I wanted to get Raphael involved, and he's been involved with it ever since that point.
Well, tell me about Film Noir Cinema. Like, how did you discover it? I've seen pictures on, you post things on social media, but I've never been there. I haven't been to New York in a long time. But how did you get hooked up with them? Why is it the perfect venue to show, to put on a festival?
I walked by there when I was showing another movie, and when I was showing Slow Romance in New York, in that close to that neighborhood in 2022. I was like, wow, this is supposed to be a movie theater, and it was just randomly, I didn't even know it was there. It was just randomly on my way, right, like in the neighborhood, and I think I was lost at the time, so I was like, what is this? Just a movie theater popping up in the neighborhood. Then I did some research. I went over there. The guy who owns it is a big fan of the movies, big fan of film noir cinema, and it's just the perfect place for small indie art house projects. Very large screen. Raphael was there, had a good time. 50 seats, and there's a retail store in front. Very nice neighborhood, very easy to get to. Lots of food, very safe neighborhood in New York. So, for those reasons, it's a great place. And I've done a couple of videos, which you may have seen from the last couple of screenings.
And as far as the festival goes, what we're going to be seeing this weekend, you're going to have filmmakers there doing Q&As after the festival, being able to meet the adoring public. So it's a single screen kind of venue, like it really is a small indie theater. I mean, that's great, and it reminds me of Raphael, your film Only in Theaters. I mean, we talked to the Lemleys and their whole story of trying to save their family-run chain of businesses, and then running into COVID and all sorts of other kind of challenges. So, what was your kind of reaction to getting involved with film noir and doing a screening there and talking to folks? Did you get that same kind of a vibe as the spirit of the Lemleys?
Yeah, I mean, look, what Sujewa has done is essentially kind of gather up other filmmakers who are independent, are self-driven and looking for audiences. And there are theaters out there who are obviously looking for wonderful movies to play. And so it's been fun to sort of be a part of this collective of other wonderful filmmakers that Sujewa has now sort of gathered and is sort of highlighting in this festival. The film that I made is about a very specific, chain of theaters in Los Angeles. It has, even if you don't know the Laemmle theaters, maybe you've never even been to Los Angeles, it is the story we tell is similar to a lot of what a lot of theaters have faced, which is, how to be able to kind of stay relevant, how to be able to kind of sort of weather the storm and how to keep going. That story is a very particular one because of this crazy theater royalty in this family. But what Sujewa is trying to do, and what Ian you've done, is commit yourself to kind of trying to kind of really elevate and promote movies in theaters, and that's really such a wonderful thing, and so important, and really how the art form was designed. It's to even 50 seats, and by the way, Film Noir is a really nifty theater. By the way, it's just very groovy, really nice sound in this spot, and it has tucked away. You wouldn't. It's very. You might walk by it, and not really even sort of notice it, but it's lovely, and the guy that runs it obviously really cares. But this is again an opportunity to bring theaters on a screen to an audience, have people gather in one place and enjoy it, and that's anytime that happens. We've all succeeded in getting the word out and bringing people in.
And
Awesome.
Any event is a good chance to promote your film worldwide, even if people can't make it to that theater and way above capacity. But it's a solid reason to promote the movie, contact media, talk to other filmmakers, and it moves all projects along, to the next thing.
Definitely. Okay, we're going to take a quick pause. We're going to try and get Rick back in here. And now we have Rick. He's with us with full sound and video. Welcome, sir. How you doing?
Fine. I'm one of the Noir 6. Okay.
That's right.
I like that. You should all get tattoos.
Yeah, I've been looking at that Chicago 8 or whatever they were. Chicago. By the way, Ian, you don't know I'm from Chicago. I don't think.
I don't think I knew that.
Born and raised in Chicago on the South Side, about 5 blocks from Oprah, about 6 blocks from Brian Gumbel, about 10 blocks from Obama. Who knows? South Side.
Okay, so we officially have a Chicago connection with everybody on the panel because Mike and
Wow.
Reid, you made a Chicago movie. Rick, you were born here, or as was I. Raphael, you made a famous movie in the Chicago area, and Sujewa, you were a Chicagoan for a bit.
And I went to film school in Chicago, Columbia College.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yep.
Terrific.
So Chi-Town represent. Love it.
Right.
Well, Rick, since we're talking to you, let's talk about CHETZEMOKAH'S CURSE. Why is this out of your entire filmography? And I'm not. This is going to sound like an accusation the way I've toned it. I don't know why.
Fire away.
Why CHETZEMOKAH'S CURSE to show at Indie Arthouse Summer Festival?
Well, Sujewa liked it best. I mean, need I say more? He waded through however many movies I sent him on the DVD, and he sort of bull-eyed that one. But the story, nobody understands the full story. It's so simple. I thought I was going to make a living teaching film by having people come in and do a workshop. Well, it's been maybe a year since anybody sent me any wild money to do, a workshop with people off the street. Here was a guy off the street. He sent $2,500. And I was talking to Morgan, who was going to co-produce it, fly in with the equipment, bring a sound guy, all of that. I'm on the phone to Morgan, and I say, Morgan Schmidt thing, for reference, my son. Morgan, I can't afford this. I've only got one person, $2,500. I mean, I'm going to lose God knows how much money. I mean, this is not what I thought I was doing. Now, I didn't say the rest of that. I just said, Morgan, I can't afford it. He says, holy fuck. I've already bought the tickets, and I've already bought a ticket for the sound man. Okay, I said, okay, I guess I'm going to lose money again. I mean, I couldn't say no. So that's how actually CHETZEMOKAH'S CURSE began. Now, the second little thing that you might enjoy is I've never put flyers up in my own town for a workshop feature film. For once, I thought, I'm just going to put these flyers up in this town of 10,000 people, and just what the hell. I printed them out, printed about 10 of them, brought my staple gun, stuck them to a few telephone poles, and I got a letter, or I should say a note, from this woman, Maya Bertode. And she said, I'd really like to be a PA on your movie. I hear you're making a movie. I read about it on a telephone pole. And I said, oh, okay. I talked to her on the phone. I said, yeah, but I need you to fill out the submission form thing, which is about 1 page, education, School of Hard Knocks, and a half page of a real life story, which is all I really need to know from people who are going to join me. Okay, a couple days later, I checked my P.O. box, and there's an 11-page real life story. I'm going, holy shit, this stuff is hot. So I meet her for breakfast, and I say, well, actually, I think you're going to be the lead in the movie, not a PA. And when we went to Dogme, that simply meant you're going to be the lead actor and a writer-director as per Dogme 95. So she became a writer-director within a week of wanting to be a PA. And within about 3 months later, I'm looking at the New York Times, and it said, Italian for Beginners, this Dogme movie, is the first Dogme movie with a woman director. I said, wait a minute. I wonder if, well, Maya is she's the only female, but she's the first female Dogme director, because I looked at the dates. We were 2000. We were before that movie. So I phoned the New York Times. I don't think, there was email in 2000. Anyway, I got in touch with them, and they put in a correction that said, Maya Bertode is the first female Dogme director of a feature film. So, I mean, she went from a PA to a historical figure in about 3 months. And you do understand, I make this movie in 10 days. That's what I made it in. shot in 4.5, edited in another 5. We were completely done. There was no extra footage I had to dig around and shoot, as pulling money in after 6 months, or what I had to do for Emerald Cities 3 times. So that's kind of a little nutshell.
So the reason I chose it was because it's a Dogme 95 movie, and also the ending reminded me of a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. So I thought regular people will be able to connect with at least the ending. And Ian is a big fan of that movie also, so it will be.
Yeah, it's great to hear that. I mean,
easy to promote it.
Yeah, I don't really pick actors. I pick nice people I know in the first level, and then nice people I meet in the second level. When I read her real life story, and I'm into real life stories, I have like 7, 8, 9 real life stories in every feature I've just about ever done. So I went, holy shit, this is like a mother lode of real life energy / stories. There's like 5 or 6 of them in just the application she sent in. So when I met her for breakfast, she said, okay, whatever. Well, she never thought of acting one day in her life, I don't think.
Well, and the fact that you did the entire film in 10 days, I mean, that's pretty unbelievable, especially considering the end result. I mean, Sujewa is right. We talked about that movie and I absolutely fell in love with it. I think it was might have been the first Dogme 95 film I'd seen. And I think to this date, the only one. But later we talked about another film we talked about with you, Emerald Cities. And I think it was last month or the month before. Time means nothing to me. I read the book.
Wow.
New Dark Ages, the making of Emerald Cities.
I wondered why I got that check for $2. I mean, $1.80, whatever it was. But that's nice to hear. Welcome. I feel good about that book. I mean, I think that's the one where I sort of, if you read about, and if that's the book that has it in how I got published with my feature filmmaking book, it's no different than how I make movies. I mean, just take one step at a time. Number one, we shoot 1-to-1. Why shoot twice if you got it right? And secondly, suddenly I had the pressure of having to answer to somebody who paid me $2,500. By the way, Morgan he said, I need 2,000 to shoot it and about 400 for the airfares. So I made $100 until I mixed the sound in Seattle for 1,000. That's when I lost money. I mean, I just got to have the sound right. But I mean, Maya's coming in. I mean, I found Maya in the last week. I still have the pressure. I've got to get a storyline going of some kind. The guy that flew in stayed at the Palace Hotel in Port Townsend. So now I've got a hotel. I got a hotel and I got Maya. It's like kind of a Victorian hotel. Maybe I could find a dress for her somewhere. In the building next door, they had a dress shop. I go in there and I pick this kind of semi-ugly to me, but Victorian looking dress. I'm just eyeballing her size, okay? I buy the dress, I give it to her, it fits. And then later, with Dogme 95 rules, you can't bring in costumes to your set. I mean, I'm a non-rule person, I hate rules. But anyway, I had to actually ask for forgiveness from the Dogme 95, Lars von Trier, the other guy, you know his name. I had to send a little note saying, will you forgive me? I had to transport the dress from the building next door to the set. I thought, this is funny. I mean, I'm laughing all the way. It's just like, I said, oh, by the way, guys, I'd like to include a chapter in my, the 2000 edition of my film book. It's going to come out a little later. Could you guys send me like a signed okay, or, can you send me a signed permission? And about a month later, I got this letter from Lars von Trier and the other guy, What?
Thomas Winterberg?
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually sent them a little form that I typed up with a line for their name, you know, and a little typed up name under each one. They signed both. That's one of my keepsakes.
Yeah, that's what I used for promo for that movie.
You know, that might be where I get back my sound mix money, or I don't know.
Right.
Well, the thing about reading New Dark Ages is, I mean, you talk about a scrappy production that was Emerald Cities, and during our conversation, the podcast we did about it, you were talking about miracles and how a lot of your life comes down to, you know, the happenstance and things kind of falling into your lap. You know, you put in the work, certainly, but when you need something to happen, it kind of happens on, you know, scales both big and small. And it's not just
Right.
to say that if you pursue this life that miracles are going to happen left and right, but you know, it underscores the possibilities of making art, making films that people are going to see, remember, and talk about, and things that you can do for no money. You just get a willing, kind of hungry crew. You go out and you see what happens, and the result can often be wonderful. Now, Rick, you were talking about discovering Maya and having had no previous experience,
Right.
which brings me directly to Mike and Reid, your film, Thank You Five. There is which is about a Chicago stage production with a pretty expansive cast of very neurotic characters, one of whom is an actress who we come to find out, I don't want to spoil anything, but she was almost cast accidentally in the film, and it was in the play, and she had no prior experience, and that becomes sort of a plot point. Now, you guys, the version of Thank You Five that I watched was black and white, and I watched it in two parts, you know, one the other night and the other, I think yesterday morning I finished it because I keep weird hours. But I paused in the middle of it and I texted Sujewa how in love I was with this film. But I had a bit of a dilemma because I'm like, this is one of the best things I've seen this year, but it's not a 2024 movie. I mean, it came out a little bit ago. That was my understanding. Now I finished the film. And I wrote back and I said, incredible movie, top to bottom. And then he asked me what I thought of the black and white. And I said, it looks great. And I found out, because I went to Amazon and I bought the movie. But right before I pressed purchase, because I'm not going to rent this thing, I already watched it via a screener link that was provided. But I noticed something strange. In the preview they were showing, it was in color. I was very jarred. I'm like, how am I seeing what I'm seeing? No offense, guys. I didn't like what I was seeing because I loved the black and white so much. So I texted Sujewa back. He's like, yeah, there's a black and white version for the festival that we're going to be showing this weekend. Now, I don't know if you guys have an answer for this, but is there going to be an official like black and white release? Because I will buy the movie twice if that's what it takes. And also, can I officially say that I can put this Thank You Five on my list of top films of 2024 because this is technically a new version. Does that work that way?
Yeah.
Yes and yes. Short answer.
Yeah.
Mike, I didn't mean to cut you off, but yeah, please.
Now you'll have to release it. Ian is into it.
Totally, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the screening that we're doing is, I mean, really, it was just testing the waters on that version, I guess. And so now that we've got, you know, Sujewa's input, your input, and then we'll get the audience in Brooklyn's input, I think then that will help us kind of put to bed which version is the, you know, one true version.
Or it could be just both. I mean, some people hate black and white.
Sure. Yeah, I think for our own sake, I think it's mostly just about, I guess, settling on, I guess, what truly fits our vision the most. And I think, you know, this was just kind of a thing that, you know, was kind of presented to us as, you know, something that we might want to consider. And so, even though it is currently on Amazon and Tubi, you know, it can easily be changed. And if people are responding to the black and white version, then, you know, I'm all for that.
I think Mike got it. I'm happy for the opportunity. I think there's a we talked about, weirdly enough, Mike actually discussed this in an interview with Sujewa separately, that there was a conversation about us doing a black and white version of this, and whether or not that was a little too on the nose, because it was already kind of an art house film to begin with, and it was our first indie, and it's like, do we do a black and white? And we scrapped it. So I'm interested in getting the real feedback from an audience to see if that is the direction that we can go in. And then selfishly, if it is if it is in black and white, technically we can resubmit it to a lot of places. So I would be happy to do that, not to keep writing Thank You 5, but I think genuinely we made a really sweet film. When I say sweet, I mean like the emotional relationships that we captured in the film because of the actors and the cast that we had was very genuine. And I think there is something really sweet about the way the film wraps up. And if the black and white version would help that get out into the world, we certainly didn't make it to be a secret. So I would love to, I love to try to give it another shot. If it's something that can help, especially the cast, they're so freaking talented. If it's something that we can get out into the world and they could get, additional work out of it and get discovered, then I'm all for it. Awesome.
Well, Ian, what did you like about it? Because you don't often say, I love this movie from head to toe, because we were talking about the new Quiet Place movie last week, and you were, neither you nor I were fans of that one.
That's correct. And I've done many shows this summer about movies that have been coming out this summer, and my constant disappointment and head hanging. So it is refreshing to see. And we don't have time to talk about all the things I loved about Thank You 5. I will hopefully be able to channel my mental word vomit into something approximating a written review in time for the screening this weekend. So more thoughts there. But no, it's just, I guess just, it reminds me of these, I don't want this to be a trite kind of comparison, but I in high school, I watched Kevin Smith's Clerks, a black and white kind of workplace comedy, a first time feature writer, director, basically doing that thing where write, film what you know, and coming up with a hilarious personal story that a lot of people could relate to, even if some of the situations were pretty fantastical. And it reminded me a lot of that. Now, these are very different films, but I think what they share is a very personal story. Now, if Mike and Reid, you were to tell me right now, you've never attended a theater production, you don't know any theater people, you just made it up off the top of your heads, I would be heartbroken, but equally astonished at what I consider to be a very genuine, written from experience piece. Now, there is a lot of kind of, I'll call it conventional comedy techniques that are used. I'll say like kind of the Office style. People aren't like mugging at the camera, but just in terms of your cuts, the types of jokes that you tell, that kind of stuff. But what really grabbed me was, I'll call it the last act of this picture. I mean, comedies tend to get dangerous when they creep towards the 2-hour mark. But I'd say in the last probably 15 minutes of the show, and the aftermath of the stage performance that the characters in the movie are putting on, usually that's like the kind of the big climax and things are winding down. But the post-performance conversations and the tying up of the relationship dynamics, the film takes on, it's not zany, but is very sweet and very incisive, talking about art and the pursuit of art, why people do it, doing things for the right and the wrong reasons in the biz. And I think that really is a great highlighter marker of why everybody needs to see this movie, whether or not they give a shit about local theater or not. It does speak a lot to, dare I say, the human condition, and trying to find your place in the world through artistic expression. And it's beautiful and funny. And also, I'm never going to be able to use the phrase "make yourself comfortable" without saying, please make yourself comfortable. My God. Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, I made a note to check all stage directions and lines after seeing that.
Yeah, actors, they catch everything. Thank you so much, Ian, for mentioning that. And actually, it's so funny that you made that comparison. I wouldn't call it trite at all, but I think that was the exact dilemma that Reid and I were just discussing, or that Reid was alluding to, which was that we admire Kevin Smith, but the fact that it was kind of like a thing where it's like a first-time feature that's in black and white, we were actually kind of worried that that comparison would make us feel as though we were ripping something off. It's like, but I think ultimately, the thing we came down to is that really it's like there's opinions from people that you just can't control, and so it's at the end of the day, if people want to compare us to Kevin Smith, like go for it, and so I think that being maybe too precious or too self-conscious to make the choice to put it in black and white maybe held us back for a while, but I'm glad that we're at where we're at now.
When I saw the color version, I think it was right after the Chicago event. Filmmaker that we know recommended this film to me and put us in touch with Mike and Reid. And I was like, "Oh, this looks good. If you guys ever do a black and white version, I can show it in Brooklyn." They're like, "No, we're not going to worry about that." Then, like 6 months later, they email, or however, maybe 3 months later, they said, "All right, we have a black and white version. Take a look." And then I was like, "Yeah, this is great. We could show this." One thing I want to mention: Raphael has a special event coming on Saturday, so we should mention that.
Is that Saturday, this coming Saturday, the festival Saturday, or the Saturday after? I don't know my dates. I'm
Festival
confused.
Saturday.
Yeah,
Festival Saturday, okay.
I mean, I did a film called Risky Business about 40 years ago, and we're having a screening to support the theaters. This is the new Plaza Cinema on the Upper West Side, and Curtis Armstrong and Richard Masser and I are going to be there for the Q&A. And it's
a good one.
It holds up. It's a fun movie, but it is it's to support them. It's to support the theater, which is a really good spot. And,
is there a guy named Tom in that movie?
There is a guy named Tom.
Little known guy.
He's awfully high paid now. You couldn't afford him, I don't think.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You did a good deed for Hollywood, I gather.
Raphael was just an actor in that movie. He was young. This was a long time ago.
Yeah, he was off the boards.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
It's hard to stop watching that movie because it's got a pretty woman in it, and the storyline is keeps driving into funny, conflicting, good moment, filling the house with all his buddies, or just some good insanity. I love that stuff.
Yeah, and great music, right? Tangerine Dream.
Yeah. Great music that's still on the radio or still always happening.
I sent a copy of Thank You 5 screener to Rick and Raphael. You guys can watch it and join the festival next week.
Well, look forward to
thanks for the freebie. Now, you guys, the middle guys, I call you, have you done more big budget movies or scripted bigger budget movies in the past? Or is this just like you're just saying, the hell with it, we're just going to grind a good one out?
The latter. This was our first feature, and it really was very similar, I think, to your story that you started with, Rick, where it was kind of like, let's make a movie. What do we got? And then just kind of like grabbing stuff and pulling people in, and really just kind of like just saying, okay, we're starting, and then just did it. It really was kind of just something that came together, and we just kind of willed it into existence in some way.
It's nice that you have a team. To your John Lennon and who's that other guy? But I mean, you have a support system built in that's, if either of you get tired, the other one goes, "What the fuck? Come on,
100%.
We're doing something here."
100%, yeah.
And it's going to be good or whatever. Yeah.
Great color is tough to do on an ultra low budget, so the black and white really works for this movie.
Nice.
Yeah, we had a
thanks for the screening.
We had a $10,000 budget all in, $10,000 and a shitload of favors. So we really went to task on that, and we spent a lot of time in post-production because we had a very wild shooting schedule. It's funny, Rick, when you were talking about making money on a film, I didn't know that was possible until you said it. So
exactly.
It's not possible.
You need to have the money up before you start a movie. I mean, I guess that's the only way it works. So.
Yeah.
I've
no
never
one
had
ever
that.
takes money on movies. No.
Yeah. Every time they gave me a grant, I like overspent it. I mean, it was ridiculous. Addiction to, I don't know, spending money on a movie.
all the Hollywood studios are broke, so no one ever makes money on movies.
Well, listen, I got to ask, Reid, you mentioned like a shit ton of favors. Was one of those favors, there's Theater Wit, I guess that's the location that was shot at. Without giving too much away, without hopefully not giving anything away, but there is a reveal of a pretty impressive set, like the cast within the play inside the movie. When they see it, they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that this was a thing." Was that set one of the favors? Because I'm sitting there wondering how the hell you pulled this off on what I considered to be a micro budget. I assumed. I didn't realize it was $10,000. Come on.
Yeah, that was
For the
so.
rental.
That's a funny story. I'm actually really glad you brought this up. So Mike, to his genius, thought it was like, if we film this in a theater, we can get two locations: one before the space has been built, and then a theater space after that's been fully erected with whatever it's going to be. And so, in the script that Mike wrote, Prelude to a Tradition, which was what the play was based off of the film, it was supposed to take place in a diner. And then we wrote that in as a result of knowing that the play that was going to be in that theater space was supposed to be a diner. And then when we showed up to the theater, it was actually Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds. They had swapped it, the theaters. So we got in, and that actually made the film, because we didn't have a diner to film in anymore. And so that actually became a joke in the project. But yeah, that was part of Mike's idea. That worked brilliantly for us because it saved us a ton of cash.
Yeah, I think we were like, okay, we can shoot in this theater, and they gave us full run at Theater Wit. They basically were like, yeah, you guys can film in there, but a set's going up eventually, and you're just gonna have to work around it. And we said, no, cool, totally, like that's fine. We'll deal with whatever's in there. And yeah, we thought that they were doing Balm and Gilead in there, and we like looked up online, and they're like, takes place mostly in a diner. So then we were like, okay, let's work diner into the script as much as possible. And then we showed up to shoot, and it was a house, and we're just like, well, what do we do? Do we change it? We go, no, this is just part of it now. That it was supposed to be a diner, and it's a house now, and the characters in the movie have to deal with that.
Well, it's also, part of one of the many things I loved about it was the idea of, to quote Jean-Luc Picard, our mission is to go forward. You constantly see characters having to roll with punches in terms of the production they're putting on and otherwise. Later on in the film, there's a character who loses a bottle of wine prop that it's supposed to have, goes out, gets coffee, brings it back without really, I think, thinking it through. There's this moment of inspiration, like, I need a drink, I don't have water or wine, I can just go get coffee. And they show up on set, and then you can see the moment when they realize, wait a second, these are coffee and styrofoam cups and lids. I'm in a play that takes place in the 1940s. And then the scene goes on from there. It's just it's wonderful stuff, but it's kind of funny, but it's also that idea of what you have to do to get the job done. The show must go on, as they say. Absolutely. That goes for the 100 or 200, I lost count, stories in Rick's book about the making of Emerald Cities, where just accident after happenstance after miracle is happening. To Raphael, we talked about this during the making of Only in Theaters, where as a documentary filmmaker, you don't start off with a script. You're following subjects, and whatever happens in their life, you are trying to capture that and mold it into a story or reflect the reality of what's going on. And we saw a couple of major milestone events, both in terms of the Lemleys and in terms of the nation, unfold in your film. And Sujewa, in Cosmic Disco Detective Rene, I mean, you're dealing with weird kind of, I guess, conspiracies and aliens and all sorts of strange things. So yeah, time traveling, yes, the immortal time travelers, yes. I always thought of them as aliens. I don't know why. I can't.
It could be.
It's kind of like Interstellar, where they're, spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen Interstellar, they're not aliens. They're, I guess, us from like the way far future that have evolved, if I understand what happened at the end of that movie. So
no one knows about that movie.
Yeah. So Sujewa, you are you're the creator of this festival. We still haven't talked about your movie. So tell us about Cosmic Disco Detective Rene. Secret Society for Slow Romance 2, and I guess the precursor for your next film, which is in production.
Sure. And the festival and all the other films kind of fit in, because when I went to talk to the theater owner about showing my movie there, and I think somehow Raphael's movie came up, and he's like, "Oh, I've never heard of that movie." And Raphael's movie's been shown in like 100 theaters. There was New York Times, LA Times articles. But this guy who owns a little theater that might even show up in Raphael's movie had never heard of it. So that just shows how weird the media landscape is. People who are supposed to hear things are not hearing about it. So I was kind of shocked that he didn't know about it. So I introduced him to the movie, and then the conversation was going on with Rick and Mike and Reid about showing their movies in New York. So once I booked my movie, I was like, oh, we should add these other movies, try to make it a fest, get more people out. So that's how the whole festival came about, and that's how we ended up here tonight. Also, I'm pleasantly surprised that you liked Mike and Reid's movie a lot, Ian, because you never know when you send a movie to Ian if he's going to love it or hate it. So this one was very good. So for people watching this, 7/12, which is Friday, my movie opens at 7 p.m., Rick's movie at 9 p.m. Then Saturday, Mike and Reid are flying in from Chicago and Austin to New York for the opening of their movie at 5 p.m. Saturday the 13th at 5 p.m. And Raphael's we already showed in June, but that's available on VOD. And we have a lot of discussions with Raphael, and I'm going to be promoting that movie at the festival. So that's how the festival and all of us came together. And the actual movie itself, Cosmic Disco Detective Rene, I wanted to make a follow-up to the slow romance movie, which was like My Dinner with Andre, two people talking, which I shot in 2020 during the pandemic. So, for about 6 months, I tried to make a direct sequel. Then I figured out having multiple dimensions and a sci-fi story would make it much more interesting and doable. So that's how we ended up with Cosmic Disco Detective Rene, multiple dimension story. And then following this, we're plotting out 51 other movies, each one an adventure to find a missing spaceship that was discovered somewhere in the world, brought over to New York, and now has gone missing. So the next movie is going to be called 53 Hidden Ancient Spaceships. And that will have 53 little short stories where myself and Aaliyah, who plays Allison, the second detective, or Rene, the detective's assistant, we talk about each case. So that one is probably being designed for YouTube. It's that's one we can cut up into 53 pieces and also push by itself on YouTube. My movies do well on YouTube, especially Rene. It has like 350,000 views on YouTube. I took it off YouTube for the theatrical. Eventually, when all the theatrical's done, I'll go back to YouTube and other VOD, Film Hub, Amazon, etc. And Raphael's movies on VOD. Mike and Reid's new version might be on VOD later. There are old versions on VOD. A lot of Rick's movies are on Vimeo, many for free. So we're all VOD people, but doing some theatrical in the coming fest. Anyway, that's how the Cosmic Disco Detective world came into being, and I'm glad it did, because now we have a bunch of other movies to make.
Yeah, it's very cool how everything is coming together. And one of the things I want to talk about that I teased at the beginning of the show, it's a big topic, so I don't expect us to unpack absolutely everything. But I mean, you hear stories about, especially with a couple of months ago, as the blockbuster summer kind of got off to a horrible start with a lot of films bombing and then coming out on VOD 3 weeks after they were in the theaters. You hear stories about theater chains closing all over the country. But it sounds like, I mean, I know here in Chicago, we've got several independent theaters. We've got, the Music Box, we've got Facets, we've got the Davis, Siskel Center, all over the place. But then you have these, film deserts in other parts of America. But I don't hear as much about independent theaters closing. I hear more and more about like, hey, we're having festivals, or we're gonna be showing, this independent film is opening here, and you get decent crowds. So I guess I wanted to talk about, kind of get a feel for your opinion as independent filmmakers. Where do you see the kind of the theatrical experience in terms of like the indie scene, as is the name of the series?
So I can quickly jump in. New York City indie art house theatrical is doing fine. It's probably doing better than mainstream movies. For mainstream, I think you need Hollywood to open up the theatrical window, provide more exclusive content, so people end up going to the theaters, not waiting to rent it 2 weeks later. So that's my take on that. But Raphael might have some more detailed ideas.
Yeah, I mean, there are, anecdotally, after the shutdown, when, obviously a lot of theaters closed and there was a lot of doom and gloom, we saw some of the highest grossing movies of all times. That is obviously with more mainstream studio movies. But there has also been kind of a resurgence of people going back to movies. Now, obviously, Arthouse and movies are still, trying to find their footing. But I was super glad to hear, for example, just straight up kind of from the man who's running 7 theaters in Los Angeles, that he did okay last year. He actually was able to kind of pivot into being back in the black. And so that's encouraging. There's a wonderful movie theater in LA called Vidiots, which is just sells like crazy. And they're doing repertory programming. The New Plaza in New York, they, and on. The IFC, the Film Forum. I mean, every time I go down there, they're almost full houses. So there is an appetite for intelligent movies. And yes, while people will watch Lawrence of Arabia on their iPhones and we won't be able to do anything about it, the fact is that if you go to a movie and you sit there with an audience, you get to be reminded about why going to the movies is a unique experience. It's about a screen that's bigger than you. It's about being in an audience where you're sharing this with a crowd of strangers. The emotional experience is amplified. Everything about a movie feels like a movie when it's on a screen. And yes, of course, there are wonderful things on streaming, and streaming's not going to go anywhere. But a movie in a theater is still how the art form was designed and has been, continuing to sort of replicate itself for over 100 years. Will theaters continue to be challenged? Will they continue to need to sort of make decisions that pivot? Yes. Are we now kind of trying to come out of some of the stuff, which is sort of a lack of movies because of the strike? Yes. But I am encouraged by sort of the momentum of what we're seeing in terms of people coming back to movies, discovering, and younger people going, God, I love this, particularly at some of these repertory, theaters. And, obviously when you've got great programming and something that's marketed well and designed to kind of catch people's attention, people are willing to kind of walk in and go, what's this experience? And that's why these little neighborhood theaters like Film Noir have been able to make it work. And it's super cool when they do. It's better. It's always better when you see a movie in a theater. That's just the way it is. And that's, that was sort of the passion point for me making the movie that I made called Only in Theaters. But it is, as a filmmaker also, I don't know a single filmmaker that I've spoken to. I mean, yes, streaming is great. You obviously have a huge, audience. You get a worldwide audience, but there's not a single filmmaker that I've ever spoken to who doesn't want to see their movie in a theater on a big screen. It's always the place where it feels really like a movie and not just a link or a chance to stream something.
I can't fast forward at movie theater, so I like that. Otherwise, I fast forward.
Well, I mean, this whole conversation, Raphael, you just put it in my head. Like, movie theaters, I wonder if they're going to be
Mm.
considered kind of like vinyl at a certain point, because when you had moved from records to cassettes to CDs to MP3s, to Sujewa's point, oh, I can fast forward digitally or skip to any song, or now I no longer need to have a CD or a physical object. I can just do everything faster digitally immediately. But and for the longest time, people thought records were dead. But then there's a resurgence of the medium, and now you've got vinyl sections in Target. So I'm wondering if people of this younger generation, and yes, I realize I sound like I'm 100 years old, but my youngest, or actually my youngest and my oldest, they're addicted to watching YouTube shorts, or 5-minute YouTube videos or TikToks or whatever. The idea of sitting down to watch something that's an hour and a half long at home, like, but I get them to a movie theater, and yes, it's partially because they can't leave because they aren't old enough to drive anywhere on their own, but just the idea of being in one place with a giant glowing screen telling them one long story that's stirring all different kinds of emotions. I wonder if that's going to be people rediscovering cinema by saying, hey, isn't this cool? That's what I'm hoping for. But again, I'm the film critic guy. I'm not speaking from the experience of having made a movie. So Mike and Reid, talk to me a little bit about the aspect of Thank You 5 in terms of you deciding to be filmmakers, feature filmmakers. Were you thinking we're creating something for a digital world, or is this like, we believe that this is going to be in theaters, maybe even beyond the festival circuit? What were you thinking when you conceived the idea of Thank You 5 as far as presentation?
What were we thinking is a question I ask myself often, Ian. I think we were as optimistic and realistic as we could be when we started. I remember we were sitting in a Starbucks writing ideas on note cards, being like, all right, I think we have an idea to make a movie. And I remember we talked a lot about the idea of like, what are we doing this for? Because you alluded to this earlier, but Reid and I have performed a lot on stage, and in a lot of different, in plays, improv, sketch. Like, we've kind of done a lot of that, and it always feels very temporary. You perform a show live maybe once, a few times, a handful of times, and a live audience sees it, and then it feels like it kind of just like disappears, and it feels very kind of like ethereal almost. And so we're talking about making a movie, and we're like, well, film tends to last, but the likelihood that this movie that we make catches fire and plays in theaters for months and has a successful shelf life and is a huge hit on streaming, it was kind of like, what are the odds of that even, and is that something to aspire to? And I think it informed a lot of our, I think, kind of like ethos and what we were doing, in that I felt like we always kept in mind just this idea of like, are we doing this for the intent that as many people as possible are going to see it? Like, that was always our goal and our dream. But I think at the end of the day, we kind of always had to stay true to this idea that we were making this movie because we believed in it, and it was something that we really wanted to do, and it was an art form that we wanted to pursue, and it was just something that was like really it was just important for us that we wanted to be filmmakers, and that was kind of the thing first and foremost. Whether or not it had a successful theatrical run or was a successful movie, financially, that was kind of something that we thought was maybe going to be more out of reach. So really, it was, from the beginning, it was always kind of like the doing it was kind of the more important part, because it's something that we love. I think we've tried our best to navigate, past festivals and things like that. I mean, the way that we started this conversation, it's like we're still navigating it, because it's like we have a version that is on VOD, but we're just now discovering this black and white version. And so I I think it's something that we're trying to be as fluid as possible with, because I don't think anyone has quite pinpointed or nailed down what the path is these days.
Mhm.
Well, it's great to hear you say that. I was going to say, but I'll just say, and I think it's odd because there's a very similar kind of monologue at the end of the film talking about, being an actor and, what are you an actor for? Is it for, gaining recognition or fame, or is it just something that you're passionate about that you feel that you have to do, whether it's in a huge production or that, everyone sees, or a disaster of a play that no one's going to see? And that ends up being the conversation you kind of have to have with yourself as you move through the entire process, including, hey, now it's out in the world. Is anybody watching it? Is anybody responding to it? Does it matter if they do, besides financially? How do you take that on as an artist? And do you take that experience and say, okay, I want to do this again? Or is like, well, it's a one and done. I'm going to go back and explore something else. These are, huge questions, but it's just kind of cool to hear you kind of talk this out and see how it relates back to, the characters that we watch in the movie and how they evolve. So thank you.
Can I actually?
One possibility that's opened up now is because theaters, especially art houses, need content, mainstream theaters need content, it is possible to go back to, if filmmakers only release theatrically for a long period of time, it is possible to go back to longer windows. I did the math, and it is possible to show a small movie at art house theaters probably for several months. We've gotten used to 1 week releases, 2 week releases, 30-day releases, whatever. So I think it might be and I'm going to experiment with that myself with my movie. I'm going to try to keep it running for months at various theaters. It might be possible for some filmmakers to play longer theatrically and get more press for their movies and develop themselves as an artist and get more attention to them as an artist, then do VOD. And at the extreme high end in Hollywood, they should really think about, actually, I think they are thinking about it because Sony just bought theaters. So they bought the
Alamo Drafthouse, yeah.
So now they can control how long they keep their movies in the theaters. If they want to, they can keep them in for like a year if they want. And because the theater, they are the theater owners, they won't be able to push out the title. So 2 new possibilities opening up. Art house movies might be able to play a long time in theaters. Hollywood might be thinking about doing longer theatrical windows, especially when they own the theaters. And both of that will be good for the theaters, audiences, and the movies. And I think I interrupted Reid. I think he was going to say something.
No, I was just gonna, when you talked about what I guess like always begin with the end in mind. It's like no one will take you seriously as a filmmaker unless you've made a movie. So how could you possibly, how do you do that? And so it's like you just kind of have to bite the bullet. I don't think, at least for myself, I never looked at this project as like, oh yeah, we're gonna hit it big with this. But I think people will see that we're very good at being able to make a film, and we can do it with very little budget because we have a good sense of what works, and we also have a good sense of what is quality. And I think that came across, and that's actually something I'm very excited about with the film. If I could just gloat on one other thing, we won 2 awards in particular out of the ones that we did that I was very happy about, and it was the Best Ensemble Award. And you can't get that without having a cast that is like lightning in a bottle. And when we got wrapped with the film, I kept telling everybody how like amazing the film was because of the cast, but it doesn't mean as much when it comes from the person who made the film, because it's like, well, it's your film. It's like when a parent's like, hey, my kid's super talented, and it's like, okay, mom, like I get it. But it's like when we got done with it, it's like I think we did something really special here, and I can't wait for people to see it. And again, going back to the actually, Rick brought this up earlier about working on other films. Mike and I we wrote another script first for a rom-com that was way too big to self-produce. And so we went back to the drawing board of when I talked about Mike's brilliance in this, if you don't mind me bragging about you a little bit, but it was like, how do we create something that's more contained? and he had this great idea for what ended up being Thank You 5. And we put about, I think, 10 months into pre-production to actually create the story. But this is hopefully going to be the start of something much more for us. And I can't wait to work with Mike again on another project. I'm hoping the rom-com next. But again, no one will ever, no one's ever going to hand you a tranche of cash to do a film unless you've already done one. So it's like, the first thing of this was like, hey, we just have to do this, regardless if it's a financial stinker. We just need to prove that we know what we're doing and we can make something great. And I think, and I'm not saying that because it's ours and I'm my harshest critic. I really do think we made something very special. So, and the way that Sujewa talks about your stamp of approval on this is hopefully proof that I'm not crazy and that we really did do something great. So thank you, Ian, for having us on.
Well, I think if I can just also add, I think one thing that I was thinking of, Ian, as both you were talking and Sujewa was talking, I think Sujewa is right, where it's like, I think at the end of the day, you just want your project to have a place to live, because as long as there's a place for it to be discovered, work can be done to have people find it. You know, I know it's really hard because with content being king right now, it's kind of like spitting in the ocean, but it's just kind of like, as long as there's a place that you can direct people, or you can try to push, or people can stumble across it or whatever, as long as there's a place for them to find it, that's kind of like what I feel as maybe of the utmost importance, because you don't want it to just disappear. You want it to be at least something that someone can, you know, it's findable somewhere, and, you know, somebody stumbles across it, they give it a shot, and hey, what do you know? They end up glad, they're glad that they did. But I think, Ian, the thing that you mentioned about, you know, having young kids and the fact that they're, you know, looking things on YouTube, like that's their preferred mode of entertainment. The thing I've been thinking about a lot is that, you know, when I was in college and I was studying, I studied broadcast television when I was in college, and the internet was really starting to come into its own. Like YouTube was really in its infancy, and not to age myself, but it was like a thing where the advice at the time, the wisdom of the time, was that in order for something to catch fire and go, you know, viral, was that it needed to be no more than 2 minutes. If it was 2 minutes, if it was longer than 2 minutes, you were dead. And people have kind of gone back to that. And now it's like YouTube Shorts, where it's like, if it's longer than 10 seconds, that's too long. But at the same time, people are making tons of money on YouTube podcasts that are an hour long, 90 minutes long, 2 hours long, or people will watch inane motions of somebody filming a drill press for 2 hours. Like, you know, these things, people have the attention span for what they're interested in. And so when they find something that they want to watch, they'll watch it for 20 seconds, or they'll watch it for 6 hours, episode after episode after episode. So I think the frustration of like, what's the medium, or like, how do you really catch people's attention? You really just have to make something that you believe in and that you think people will give a shot once they, you know, are kind of hooked. If you got them hooked, they'll watch for however long you want. I mean, we talked about how comedies are dangerous at 2 hours. If you're in, you're in. And I think like, if you can get your hooks in, people will kind of sit through whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I want to kind of close this point out with Rick. I mean, you are the most, I guess, seasoned filmmaker of all of us here. Well, I the people on the panel. I'm not a filmmaker, unless you count these as films. No, I'm not going to deign to do that. So, Rick, what is your read on? That was awkward because you're right next to Reid.
Yeah.
What is your sense of the independent film scene and movie theaters, and your own journey as a filmmaker, as you go from shooting movies in the late 70s, early 80s, all the way up into 2024?
Well, number one, I want to second Sujewa's idea about getting a movie to run a year in a theater. Now, there was a movie in the 60s, Queen of Hearts or King of Hearts, that ran a year in a theater in Berkeley, California. And just because it did that, everybody had to see it after a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, after 9 months or 10 months, they're saying, it's still fucking in the theater? What is this? And suddenly it just, at a certain point, it tilted and kept filling itself up, the theater, the seats. And it paid off in every which way, to the theater owner, to the people who made the movie. You know, it had a beautiful cast. It had a lovely flow. It was basically about an insane asylum that emptied out. And all the people took on roles in society. So a woman loved chocolate or whatever, sort of playing off that chocolate movie. So she got a job in a chocolate shop, but everything she did was different and weird, but it worked. Another guy wanted to be mayor of a town. And somehow it's sort of like Being There, that movie.
Right.
All these characters became Being There type characters that fit into society and were they were gifted because they were so different. They stood out. So anyway, back to Sujewa's comment. If I had a pile of cash, that's what I would do. I would insist my movie kept running in a theater, especially ones that don't do any business now. Secondly, just buy the fucking theater and keep it running. I mean, thirdly, I would just keep shoveling another movie in every month for about 2 years. That's another way. But I mean, Reid and Mike have a good movie, obviously. I'm excited to see it. Now, this quickly, I'll give you a little recommendation. Try Rotterdam. Rotterdam is at the gateway of Europe. It used to be a very small theater when I first got into that festival. I mean, small festival. Got in 77. It was like in a shopping mall where the hallway was just about where they were showing movies. I don't know, they rented different stores or something. But then lately it's become the gateway. Like I said, they would be a precursor to Berlin, although you couldn't show in both places. But anyway, I don't know what the entrance fee is nowadays, but maybe you've already entered it. But that is one festival that they'll fly you over there, at least one of you, for free. They'll put you up for free. And every showing you have will be jam-packed with people. Every showing I ever had there, full theater after full theater. So in Europe, they have a huge thirst for probably your kind of movie. Whether it be black and white or color in these days, doesn't matter as much as it used to. But I'd say look to Europe a little bit. Berlin,
Thank you.
Rotterdam. I mean, back to the original question, you're looking at somebody who's got all their movies up and running for free. Just about. I maybe left out something by accident. But of course, I wrote books on these movies. I have a how-to book that I earn nothing from anymore. I have like 20 new books I've written in the last, 20 years between movies I made. I've still got to write the CHETZEMOKAH book because, I'll quickly turn it back to that movie. The process is so spiritual, and I hate even using that word with you guys, but there's nothing normal about it. I put my, that you have it tagged in the flow of how things work when you have no budget, and you just start in a certain direction, and somehow things start gathering in. There are little coincidences that kept coming up. I mean, in CHETZEMOKAH, we were having a dinner or a late lunch talking about should we do this Dogme 95 and play by the rules and whatever weird thing that means. Up comes the waitress. And it may have been my wife who said, take a look at the waitress. You might need another female in this movie. And went, holy shit, she's gorgeous. And so brought her in. Then, of course, what do I do with her? I thought, well, let's see. Maya's pretending to be a clerk at the hotel. This woman says, oh, I think I can get my boyfriend or an old boyfriend to be part of the movie. Now I've got a couple. It was so obvious. Have them walk up to the counter at the Victorian Hotel and try and get a room. These things are not, they're logical in the flow of being crazy and have to do something and keep the ideas flowing for whatever length of time you're shooting. So that was just a slam dunk. Now, in reality, Maya's does not have a script, but she knows she's running the hotel as a frontline clerk. She goes, okay, give me a credit card. You want a room? Give me a credit card. And the guy who's an actor is reaching in his pocket. He goes, oh, I don't have it on me. That wasn't scripted. And then Maya, with her brain, her super brain, said, there's other things you can do to get a room. Now she's running with it, because once she knows her character, who she was for the movie, she's going, there's other things you can do to pay for the room. Cut to them entering the room. And she's saying, now don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. There's not going to be anything weird. Just meet me after your hour or two in there, and we'll settle this up. Now at that point, I had noticed a little box made out of sticks that was right next to the water, and there's a nice breeze and old fiberglass parts that were flowing in the wind. I thought, it's so pretty. Let's get Maya to say, follow me, or, cut to come out. Now they're in this little enclosed box with big open sides and the wind blowing. And now she's telling them what to do to pay for the room. But she knows her character, which is she's disturbed. She left her boyfriend, who said he was madly in love with her, because she said, I think I love you more than you love me. So now she's going to make this couple pay. Now I threw in a couple of bent ideas, but she's driving it in. She's saying, make this be your last kiss. And also there was a clear question that she said, let me think how she said this. Oh, are you still in love with your old boyfriend? She said that to the woman. This was her old boyfriend playing her new boyfriend. And she's asking the guy, asking the guy if he's still in love with his old girlfriend. And he goes, maybe I am. Or, but it was real. This is a flow that these guys have obviously done in a more left brain way that got a right brain result. I haven't seen you guys' movie, and I'm looking forward to it, but you flowed it with no budget, and you made it at one of the lower budgets. When I showed Morgan's Cake at New Directors, I was 15,000. Okay. When I showed my movie at Sundance, I was 15,000. There was another movie for 10. I get credit for that. It was a solid movie, because I hate to even say, a great editor. I mean, I edited Chan is Missing for my roommate, Wayne Wing. I made him $1 million. I could make myself $1,000. Hello. But I'm a solid editor. Whenever I get this massive stuff, I bear down until it's a tight motherfucker.
You're editing a movie now, right?
Yeah, I'm editing this bread machine that was sort of a freebie popped to me by my son, Morgan Schmidt and my daughter, who works for Skydance. She's Hollywood, or at least big company there. She worked at Pixar with Lasseter for 20 years as his assistant. Now they're partners, and that's my little daughter. And she decided to produce this with Morgan, her brother, throw me a movie at 80. So
nice.
I'm cutting that now. I'm getting, I'm finally getting a little supercharged over the cutting the process. So I'm happy.
Well, Rick, the one thing I want to say first, I want to read. You have to write that book on CHETZEMOKAH'S Curse, because just hearing that story, I know, I remember the scene that you're talking about. I love that scene, and it's amazing to me that it was mostly improvisational, that you didn't know, or the actress didn't know before she went into that scene how that was going to work, because that's a pivotal moment for the character. And me as a viewer, as a film critic, I assume this was all some sort of a master plan to talk about just how demented this character is, but it was happenstance. It's unbelievable.
I was happy to throw in a few demented ideas myself, because I wanted to get it to get worse, I mean, he even shows his big toe. She says, what do you got? He has to take his shoe off. and showed a little trick with his big toe, which I've never seen before in my life. You know, it's just, but I came up with what I call the sick ideas. It allowed me to go, I'm getting a sweet idea here. Ooh, pop that to her. Oh my God. You know, I'm so evil.
Mike and Reid, I'll send you a screener for CHETZEMOKAH'S CURSE.
Absolutely.
Now,
great, we're trading movies, but yeah. Let's get back to how their movie's going to be successful. My movie's old. Theirs is hot and new. You're right at a threshold of, I don't know what your budget is for entering festivals, but I do notice that they're very expensive. I mean, I've entered some in China and India for $8 and won an award. And I'm thinking, how many billions of people are there in India or China? I mean, for $8, that's an interesting way to enter a festival through Film Freeway. You know,
right.
But when they get to be 65 or 70 or 100 for Edinburgh, where I'd really like to visit, I'm going, fuck, I just might as well burn that money. You know, it's just, but you guys maybe you'll have a plan or get a backer to enter festivals because you seem to have
they've done like
a good critic behind you.
They've done like 17 festivals with the earlier version of the movie. So we'll see what happens with the black and white version.
Yeah. Well, you got two.
Well, I mean, we could dig into a lot of the stuff that we've talked about tonight even further, but the clock is my enemy. And I do want to kind of wrap things up here by, first of all, saying congratulations to all of you guys on some tremendous work and doing the work and just saying, I'm going to be a filmmaker and then making a movie, whether you did this a few years ago or a few decades ago. You know, it really is an incredible journey and quite a feat. And I think people out there, you know, if you're in the New York area or planning to be in the New York area this weekend, definitely get yourself over to Greenpoint, Brooklyn, to Film Noir Cinema and check out NYC Indie Arthouse Summer. The lineup is, we've got links below to all of the screening information. I'm going to have links to all of our guests, you know, films or websites where you can find more info on their films and their production companies and whatnot. I do want to mention Raphael did have to jump off a little bit early because he's dealing with a family matter, unfortunately, but we do send him our best. And if you do have a chance to watch only in theaters, it's a film that kind of digs into a lot of what we've been talking about tonight in terms of, you know, art, the independent film spirit, and struggling through adversity for the sake of film. So definitely check that out wherever you rent movies. And if there's a new screening of it somewhere in your area, as Sujewa mentioned, he's been doing, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of, you know, personal kind of appearances showing the movie, talking to fans and doing some great Q&As. So yeah, keep your eye out for that. But yeah, I just want to kind of wrap things up. Sujewa, did you have anything to add as we close out?
Thanks a lot for an hour-and-a-half long discussion here. We covered a lot of stuff. And yeah, and maybe we should do, Ian, at some point, we should do a separate episode on Thank You 5 if everyone involved is up to it, Mike, Reid, and myself. What do you think?
I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, because we have more to talk about. Maybe after the fest, we could talk about how things went. Ian, I'll send you links to all the tickets for the movies, and they'll have info on all the movies and whatever else I can think of right after this. But thanks a lot for doing the show. Thanks a lot for all the guests for coming on. Mike and Reid will hang out on Saturday. I'll talk to you soon. And Raphael, good luck with the family emergency. And yeah, his movie is great. I think out of everyone here, he's probably done the most theatrical screenings of one of his own movies. He's done over 100, which is insane. So Raphael's a good person to look to for theatrical advice.
Yeah, good one. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Sujewa. Nice meeting you guys in little boxes.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks, everybody. And all the folks out there, if you like this show, please like and subscribe to all the YouTube-y type stuff. Again, be sure and follow all the filmmakers we've had on the panel tonight. Their information is down below.
One thing. Yeah. New York is easy to get to from anywhere on the planet. So get on the planes and fly out for this weekend.
Antarctica, Sujewa?
Sure.
Antarctica.
Sure.
Good invite. Yeah.
I'm just
There's
saying.
a direct to JFK. You'd be surprised.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody again. And until next time, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much and take care.